Hi everybody, Clara here. This is a short and sweet tutorial about voiceover. So, you've shot your pre-recorded class. You've done it in a beautiful location where you didn't want to wear a microphone because there was wind and all the other things. You've decided that now you're going to do the voiceover. What do? So first and foremost is you invest in a microphone. So I've left the microphone in the frame so that you can see a bit of it. So I'm speaking into the microphone that I use for voiceover, and this is called a Yeti blue microphone, and it's only like $125, and it's a very good microphone. It's I think it was created specifically for podcasts, so it picks up the voice very, very well. So you get a Yeti microphone, and then the next thing you do, you see this little black thing on top, classic. It doesn't come with the Yeti, and this is known as a windscreen, and so you want to get one of those because it helps all your spitting sounds to not go directly into the microphone. The next thing you need to get is I think it's called a pop screen, and here it is. And so a pop screen goes in front of your microphone, come C, and what it does is any of your pa, ba, all those kinds of sounds, it helps to make sure that the top part of that sound, ba, the top part, doesn't go into the microphone. So it creates more, both of these two filters essentially create a smoother sound, so there isn't as much peaking in terms of the dialogue that you're using. Really, really helpful. So I would get these two things, and then the other thing that you may want to get with the Yeti microphone is a mic stand. And I specifically own a mic stand. I don't have it here today because of the way that I'm shooting this. It would be in the way. The mic stand that I use is for musicians who sit on the floor, and so it's lower to the ground. And yeah, that's what I would use. So you've got your microphone. And notice that when I move further away, the sound is different. So I'm very, very glued to my microphone. The other part that you want to do is you want to make sure that you have headphones. I've got just classic headphones that come with the iPhone, but I'm in a location right now where there isn't very much sound. It's very, very quiet here. When I'm doing voiceover at home, I wear my big Beats by Dre headphones because they cut out a lot of the other sounds so that I'm more sensitive. I can hear what the mic is picking up more. And the reason being is, especially if you're doing it at home or whatever, sometimes you're unaware of the sounds that are kind of being picked up by the microphone. I feel like these little earphones don't pick up as much, but the other ones are a lot more sensitive. So you find out like the elevator, or for me, my last place, the pipes in terms of the toilet from the whole building is right beside the wall that I was using for VO. So it's really, really important to kind of be sensitive to what else your mic is picking up. So you got all those things. You got the hardware. And now from here, you want to choose your location. So classically, when you're doing it at home and you don't have a studio, then you usually do it, or it's recommended that you do it in your closet. And the reason being is that your clothes actually dampen sound. So it creates a smoother sound without it bouncing off of walls. I'll get John to keep the sound right now, but right now it's very echoey, like especially if I speak louder, you can kind of start to hear the echo in the room. Because there's nothing absorbing the sound of my voice, it goes all over the place, so it creates that echo sound. My editor is really good about helping me to have that, to limit that echoey sound, but if you're doing sound by yourself, or you just want to kind of limit the amount of things you need to edit, then go into your lovely closet, and I'll tell you my closet was tiny. Go into your closet and do it in there, because your clothes will make a very good sound studio. The other thing I did in my closet is my doors were made out of metal. They weren't wood doors, so I actually put blankets over the doors, or I pinned blankets to the door, so that when I closed the door, instead of hearing that metal tint sound, then again, the fabric would kind of absorb the sound of my voice, which is really, really helpful for creating clean sound. Why is this all important? Because people are either going to be listening to you when you're teaching yoga on headphones like I'm doing now, or on a speaker, and the better your sound is, the less distracting it is. Like if people don't even notice anything about your sound, then usually you're like crushing it. Okay, so these are the reasons why we want to do to the best of our ability to create really good sound. So I got all that going on. I'm in my closet. I generally am wearing not very much clothing because you're going to start sweating in there. I'll just tell you that now. It's usually like shorts and a sports bra. And that's the way that I do sound, just because I usually do a couple of them in a row. So I shoot sound, I record sound on Garageband, but there's plenty of other sound apps that you can use. I use Garageband because it comes with the Apple, comes with my laptop, but any other ones are fine. The next thing you want to do is you want to check your levels and make sure that, and this is why I'm wearing headphones, is that I don't get too loud or too soft. So I need to make sure. So notice that when I speak really loud, it gets kind of intense and it's a little bit irritating. Or if I talk really, really quietly like this, then it's hard for you to hear what I'm saying. So you want to find the right level for you in terms of how loud you speak. The next part of that is that on your microphone, they have something called a gain dial. Okay, the gain dial is how sensitive your mic is to picking up sound. My editor really recommended, and it's worked well for us, for me to keep the gain really low on my microphone. And the reason being is that it doesn't pick up, it's not as sensitive to the sounds around, but it means that I usually have to speak a little bit louder. So just things to think about when you're recording VO. Okay, so I'm set up. I got my laptop going, I've got GarageBand going, and then what I do is I have two windows open. I have my GarageBand window open, and then I have the window of my video open, okay? When recording video, like when doing voiceover to video, look at the video and watch the model, which would be yourself, doing the pose, and essentially just say what they're doing. So don't try to anticipate what they're doing. Watch them lift their leg up in downward dog, and then you say, lift your right leg up in downward dog. And so you're essentially kind of giving the cues a second or two behind the movements. And then what you do from here is you get your editor, or yourself if you're the editor, and you move the sound forward about 2 or 3 seconds so that when it's being watched, the cue is happening first and then the model is doing it. This has been really helpful, at least for me, because it's really hard sometimes to anticipate what I'm doing, because a lot of times I'll have shot this class either a couple weeks or a couple months before, so I don't really remember what it is that I was doing. So you just look, I'm looking at my laptop right now, you look at your laptop, you watch the person, and then you just say what they're doing a couple seconds behind, and then you move it over, okay? Along with that, just a side note of when you're shooting the video on location, like I was talking about in the other tutorial about setting up for a live class, same thing here, is move 2 to 3 beats slower than you would in real life. Because I'll tell you, if you move really fast, you're gonna have a hard time cueing to keep up with the movement. And I've been doing this 15 years, and there are still moments where I'm like, man, I wish I'd gone a little bit slower through that transition, because trying to explain that transition is, I can't keep up with the movement. So move a little bit slower. And then what I usually do is, especially if the sequence is complicated, once I've gone through something complicated and I'm in a pose, I usually stay there a little bit longer so that it gives the voiceover a little bit more leeway to catch up if you need to. From here, I'm sitting down, I'm doing the VO, take it nice and slow. I usually start with a theme and end with a theme. And what I'll ask my editor to do is usually the theme, I speak longer than how long I'm sitting for at the beginning and end of class. So I ask my editor, or if you're doing yourself, to elongate that time period of the meditation, or the meditation at beginning and end. And also I do that with Shavasana. I usually get them to elongate it. And so they can either slow down how quickly the frames are moving through, or they just loop the image itself over and over again until you're done your intro. So those are a couple like little things to remember when you're shooting a class and then kind of bringing it back in, or shooting a class and kind of getting prepared for the VO. In terms of how I prepare for myself, make sure you drink a lot of water beforehand. It's generally recommended not to eat too much dairy because it creates phlegm, which creates kind of that sound in your throat. And again, you never realize the stuff until you do VO, and then you're like, oh, my voice sounds thick. And you're like, that's from the coffee, the cream of my coffee this morning. The other thing that's also recommended is not to eat too close to doing VO, because that, again, also creates phlegm, which kind of creates that kind of sound on the back of the throat, which you can really pick up on a microphone. So try not to eat too much, not too much dairy beforehand, drink a lot of water, and have water on hand. And then the other thing that I'd also recommend is when I used to shoot for another online platform, I would essentially sit in the voiceover box for about 6 or 8 hours at a time. Your brain starts to become really, really fuzzy when you're in a very small, enclosed, warm room. And so I noticed that my voice wasn't as enthusiastic by the 5th hour because I was tired. So now what I usually do is I don't shoot more than an hour worth of VO at a time. So I block it off to make sure that to the best of my ability, not have to do that much VO at once, because your voice essentially is carrying the class. So if you're kind of like this, because you've been sitting for a long period of time and you're hot, it's hard to be enthusiastic in a fiery practice to motivate people. So I try not to shoot too much VO at once. And then the other thing that I found really helpful is if you're in a voice box, if you have one, to stand up, because that's really going to help. I don't ever have that in my life right now. I'm always sitting, but I move my arms a lot when I'm talking. And that creates to me a lot more, I'm kind of more inspired. I'm more animated with my voice. So all of a sudden my voice goes up because my arms are out to the side. I'm more expressive. So by expressing my physical body, I'm also able to be more expressive in my voice, which I feel like really carries over in the class. So move your hands around or stand up if you can. Don't do too much VO at one time, right? And then the only other thing that I would say around voiceover is prepare what you want your theme to be. And what I mean by that is figure out what it is you're trying to say and be as concise as possible. I talk a lot about this in this art of sequencing, or the 300-hour training. A lot of times, especially those of us who teach live classes, like in real person classes, in-person classes, in-person classes is we kind of flow with our theme because we're feeding off the energy in the room. But the thing about VO is you're by yourself. So it can be hard sometimes to draw inspiration. So I would really recommend, in terms of the theme, to write it down and really, really think and chew on what it is that you're trying to say, and have a strong sense of what you're trying to say before you come into it, come into the VO or to the recording. And the reason being is my experience of this, of listening to my own voice as well as taking other pre-recorded classes, is if people are not super engaging and like, whoa, know what they're talking about right away, at least as a student, I check out. So my theme is, let's pick a theme right now. The theme I was talking about this morning was guilt. So my theme is guilt. So I really, I did some research on what people, quotes about guilt, my relationship to it itself, how does it feel in my body, those kinds of things. And then I wrote it all down. I sat with it. I chewed on it for a bit. And then I found out, I figured out in, I think, 4 or 5 sentences what it is I'm really trying to say, so that when I show up the day of the recording, I'm very, very concise, clear, and very clear about what it is that I'm trying to say. So be prepared, yeah? And then my one last thing on voiceover is to speak slow, to enunciate a little bit more than you would in person. Because again, people can't read your lips, or there's something lost in terms of us not being in person together that is not conveyed through recording. So you want to be very clear in the way that you say things when you're doing VO. The next little part is when you hand over your voiceover, if you're doing this with an editor, you hand over the 2 files, the video file and the audio file. Make sure to be really clear about the fact that you want your editor to move the sound 2 to 3 seconds earlier, so that ideally the verbal cue happens before the visual one does. So I hope this little short video was instructional, and if you have any questions, feel free to bring it up in the Q&A. Thanks.